There is a massive fixture swing in FPL game weeks 8 to 12. So in this video, I'm going to break down all the fixtures so that you know who to avoid and who to target. Let's get into it. So I'm going to start with the teams with bad fixtures because there's a lot of good teams in here with a lot of good players that you probably want to target at some point. Just now might not be the time. And I'm not going to talk about all of them, so just a brief mention on the ones that I won't discuss. Bournemouth, you probably only have one player from that team, and that's probably Semenyo. You either hold him and bench him for the next 3, or you transfer him out and look to bring him back in game week 11 when their fixtures get better. Aston Villa have good fixtures for the next 2, but they haven't hit the ground running this season, certainly defensively. So they're probably a team that you should avoid just for now. Newcastle, I just wouldn't go near them until they start to show signs of improvement. They've not been good in an attacking sense or a defensive sense this season. West Ham, again, they've not been great defensively. If you wanted to go for an attacker, their fixtures aren't too bad for attackers, but there are probably other options that you should definitely be considering first. In terms of teams with good fixtures, there's a few you probably want to target and a few you probably don't want to target, or at least don't want to target long term. I'm going to talk about the top 4 teams here, so just a brief mention on the others. Brentford, if you want Embuemo or you want to go for a Brentford defender, they're not a bad option the next 5 game weeks. Defensively, they've actually been pretty good. If you're going for an attacker, I'd only go for Embuemo. Everton, Ipswich, Leicester, you probably don't want relegation attackers very long term. You certainly don't want the defenders long term. If you want to take a chance on them, that's fine, but just remember that you're going to probably want to get rid of them in the next 2 or 3 weeks, so make sure you have the transfers to do that. Forest, if you wanted to go for their defenders in the next 5, it's actually not a bad move. And not a lot of people are talking about Forest, so they can be quite differential for the next 5. Okay, so Arsenal had a pretty tough start to the season and doesn't look like their fixtures are getting much better here. They've got Bournemouth away this week, but then it's Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, Chelsea away, Forest at home. Good news for them is statistically they do look pretty good, so they are obviously good long-term holds. But if you wanted to back against them for the next 5 weeks, that's okay as well. Even in those tougher games, I'm quite comfortable playing defenders in those games because they do have that set-piece threat. And Arsenal proven over the years that they can get clean sheets against anyone. Because there's so many teams with bad fixtures, there's probably players that you could be transferring out this week instead of Arsenal players. For me, they're a long-term hold, and there's certainly not any reason to take hits to get rid of them. So a team with good fixtures this week is Manchester City. And we always have the same questions with City. What players are going to start? Yes, their players will be good, but you don't know if they're going to be rotated or on the bench. That said, I think if you're going to double up on the City attack, I think now might be the time. With the injuries that City currently have in the squad, you've got Rodri and De Bruyne are out. It's hard to see a lineup where Foden doesn't start. People have sort of gone quiet on Phil Foden at the start of the season because he's not really played much. And if we're talking about premium midfielders, a lot of people are looking at the others, but Foden's actually the cheapest of the lot. Yeah, I think he's a great differential, but one player that's not a differential is obviously Erling Haaland. And I think he is absolutely essential for this run. So if you don't have him yet, I think he is worth taking hits to bring in. I think if you're on wildcard, he should definitely be on there. There's no reason to go without him, especially when some of the other premium midfielders have tougher fixtures. So I won't spend too long talking about Brighton. They do have okay fixtures in the next 2, but then it's Liverpool and Man City back to back. If you've got other transfers you need to make, you certainly don't need to transfer them out for Newcastle away. The defence has been okay this season, but they have had pretty good fixtures as well. They will certainly be tested a lot more in the next 5. If you just have them as cheap options and you want to rotate them and put them on your bench some weeks, that's absolutely fine as well. Okay, so one team I want to spend a bit of time on is Manchester United. And that's because the news is so negative around them at the moment. But if you actually look at their fixtures, they probably have the best over the next 5. Got Brentford at home next, who are in pretty good form, but they did just concede 3 at home against Wolves. Then you got West Ham away, they're in the bottom 6 for expected goals against this season. Chelsea at home is obviously a tough fixture, but if it's anything like last season, it should be quite open. Then it's Leicester at home and Ipswich away, and they're both bottom and second bottom for expected goals against. So if you want to take a punt on their attackers, I don't have anything wrong with that. I can pretty much guarantee you that nobody is looking at United attackers in the next 5 weeks. That might be for good reason because they've not played well at all, but if they were going to turn around at any point, this is certainly the fixture run to do it. For all the negativity around them, they've actually kept 4 clean sheets this season, despite their poor expected goals conceded. Now I know Onana is a big part of that. He made that penalty save against Southampton, He made that excellent double save against Crystal Palace. The good news if you're targeting United attackers is that they absolutely need to win at least 3 of the next 5. And to win, you obviously need goals, so they're going to have to go for it. Now, I don't want to spend too much money on their players, but Rashford is a player that I'm looking at. He does not have good underlying stats at all, but something tells me that he just might be a good differential for the next 5 weeks. Garnacho looks to be injured, which will make him nailed on. He's also cheaper than Bruno Fernandes, who I just don't want to spend the money on. If you're a United fan and you've got them in your FPL teams already, just let that pain continue a little longer. I think you'll be rewarded. Okay, so next up we have Liverpool, who run into Chelsea at home and Arsenal away in the next 2. Now those 2 fixtures are tough, but I probably would be okay playing Liverpool players in the other 3 of the next 5. If you want to hold them in your teams, I think that's perfectly viable. So I think they're going to be pretty good differentials this week, as a lot of people are going to be taking out players like Salah and Trent to free up money. Now currently they have the best defence in the league. They've only conceded 2 goals in fact. Now they have had really good fixtures and they're certainly going to be put to the test in the next 2. But just to put it into context how well they're doing at the moment, if they keep conceding at their current rate, they'll actually break Chelsea's defensive record and have less than 15 goals conceded in a season. So that does show how well they're performing. Now I've moved Liverpool players out of my team this week, but that was really just to free up money elsewhere. They're certainly capable of winning the next 2 games, but they're certainly not going to be high scoring games, at least I don't believe that. So if you're going to keep any of their players, I'd probably keep their defenders over their attackers. Now a team that a lot of managers are targeting this week is Tottenham. Now, if you're looking at Spurs players this week, only look at attackers. A lot of people are going to be looking at Pedro Porro. He is just not worth it in my opinion. He's 5.5 million, and for 0.9 million cheaper you can get Van de Ven, so still target that Tottenham defence. Porro has not been that attacking this season. He's not on as many set pieces, he's not whipping crosses into the box. A lot of his chance creation has actually come from deep, like that ball over the top against Brighton where James Maddison got in. That's just an example I can think of, but he's certainly not putting a lot of crosses into the box, and that's where a lot of the attacking returns come from. I really don't rate the Spurs defence, and not because they're bad players, it's just because they're in such an attacking system. They're always full throttle going forward, and I think that just hurts them defensively. So as a Porro owner, if I could go back now, I would just get a 4.5 million defender and use that extra million elsewhere in my squad. But talking about the Spurs attackers, is it worth going double attack? I think yes. They're second in the league for expected goals. They've actually scored more than Liverpool this season. Despite all the praise that Liverpool have had, Tottenham have outscored them. They're also quite good value. You've got Solanke, you've got Brennan Johnson, who are both affordable players. If I had to choose double attack, I'd probably go for Johnson and Solanke, just because you save a bit of money and you can then strengthen your squad elsewhere. It's hard to fit Son in and have the likes of Palmer, Haaland, Watkins or whoever you want. Solanke has a really good underlying stat, so I'd probably go for him over Johnson if you're just looking to get him 1. That being said, I've gone for Johnson this week because I just don't have the money to go up to Solanke. That's just because I have a lot of money tied up in my defence, such as Pedro Porro actually. I think West Ham at home is a great fixture for them, and I think they'll definitely get goals in that game. Even if you could only afford to go for like Kulusevski, I still think it's worth going for him this week. That being said, I'm not expecting many clean sheets over the next 5, so attack yes, defence no. We have Chelsea who are playing Liverpool this week, and the big question with Chelsea is, are you bringing in Cole Palmer this week? The truth is, bringing Cole Palmer into your team is certainly never going to hinder your team long term. Of course there's arguments to wait because he does have tough fixtures this week. He's got Liverpool away, and then it's Newcastle at home and United away. I actually don't think they're bad fixtures for attackers at all. But then it's Arsenal at home, so a lot of people are thinking, are they going to wait till game week 12? I think the argument for getting him now is if he returns in the next couple of weeks, he's definitely going to go up in price. If you're someone that owns him already, happy days, he's an easy hold. I'm actually considering benching him this week, which is quite insane considering he's a 10.8 million attacker. So that does sort of show how tough Liverpool away is for him. I don't think he's necessarily fixture proof. While he's a phenomenal player, every player has tough games against the bigger teams, even the likes of Erling Haaland, so I don't think Palmer's immune to that. I think Newcastle at home and United away on paper are high scoring games, so you could even go for him in game week 9. It goes without saying, I think Palmer is the only player in the Chelsea team that I think is worth taking a gamble on. While the rest of their players are a lot cheaper, you don't know they're going to start because they just have so many options to choose from. Okay, so one team that I want to talk about, just because I want to give them a bit of credit, because I thought they'd actually have a pretty bad start to the season, and that's Fulham. They're currently second for expected goals against in the league. I actually thought they would struggle at the start of the season because they lost Palhinha, but Lukic has really filled his shoes quite well, and they actually look pretty good defensively and actually going forward as well. I go as far to say that Fulham might be the best value team in the league. Got a lot of great cheap options in defence. You've got the likes of Robinson. Going forward, you've got Smith Rowe, you've got Iwobi, you've got Jimenez, you've got Traore. They're all good options, I think. If I had to choose one differential for them, I'm going to pick out Jimenez because a lot of people are looking for cheap forwards this week. Jimenez is only 5.6 million and he's got 0.81 expected goal involvements per 90. That's better than any of the forwards under 6 million. And couple that with his fixtures, I think he's really good for the next 5. So there you have it. They're my transfer tips for game weeks 8 to 12. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure to hit like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what players you're targeting this week, and I'll see you in the next video.